Hello and welcome to Author's Feet, a literary program focusing on writers, their journeys to being writers, and their works. I am your host, Empress Ciku Kimani. It has been claimed controversially that writers are small gods. Are they though? Because they can create, they can destroy, they can thrive, and they can fell giants. That is fiction writers for you. Our guest today is Gilbert Mwangi. He's a fiction writer, and we are going to be finding out whether he's a small god or not. Gilbert is an author of 2 books. One of them is a collection of, he's part of the collection of this Help Next Door. He's got 2 stories here. And then he's got Nobody's Darling. That one is a fictionalized historical book about Muthoni Nyanjiru during the colonial times. Gilbert is also a humorist. I compare him to Wahome Mutahi, aka Whispers. I hope he doesn't, we don't blow his trumpets too high. Welcome to the program, Gilbert.
Thank you, Ciku.
How are you doing?
I'm glad to be here. I'm doing well.
Karibu sana to the program.
Asante sana.
So before we move on, please tell us about the works that I may have left out.
I have done 2 books. That is the novel that you have here, Nobody's Darling, which was launched last year in March. Then you have the collection of short stories that we did in 2020. I've done another book that I don't have here. I have some collection of Somali folk tales that I collected when I was working in northern Kenya for like 8 years, but it's out of print.
Oh.
So generally I can say that I've done like 3 books.
3 books, yeah?
As we talk.
Okay.
Yep.
Karibu sana once again. What are you reading at the moment?
Well, I'm reading 2 books. One, there's a book called Shades of Benga by Kettle Music. It's a big book. I always say it's the heaviest book in Kenya, around 5 kgs. The reason why I'm reading that book is because my next book is about a musician.
Awesome.
Local one from Kenya. So it's.
Are you allowed to tell us?
You'll learn about it later.
Okay.
The other book is a book called Jams, Guns and Steel by Jared Diamond. It's a book that talks about, gives you a panoramic view of our civilization as Africans and how we are lagging behind in terms of technology, in terms of development. A very well done book. So
none of your next big works is fiction, yeah?
The next book is more of a biography.
It's a biography.
Yeah, so fiction may come later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in knowing, I know you're a graduate of literature?
Yes, I did.
Literature, yeah?
Yes, I did BA literature.
Okay.
Yes.
Was that like a deliberate path to being an author?
I don't know. My dream course was law, but when but when I could not do, I decided let me take literature. I don't know how it's going to land me, but look, here we are.
Here you are.
Yeah.
And you're happy.
I'm happy.
Are you a small god?
Interesting question. I would say yes. We are talking of God in small g. But now to look at it in a bigger way, I think a writer is somebody who has a lot of liberties. One, you can create and kill characters and get away with it. You can create worlds that people can enjoy. And also you can reimagine things that people have never imagined. So I think that is the most beautiful thing about writing.
So you're a small god. We've got that out of the way. Your best time, when are you at your most creative?
I mostly write to exhale. You know, sometimes you get these ideas that are boiling in your mind. It doesn't matter the time. There is no particular time. There is no particular place. An idea comes to your mind and you feel that this idea has to come out of it. I have to give birth to this idea. So sometimes it can be, you may be traveling, you may be sitting somewhere, taking a drink. There is no particular format. But generally, I prefer writing in the late hours, maybe from around 11 in the late hours.
So you're a night owl, eh?
That is it.
Okay.
You say so.
Writer's block? Do you get those? Or
Yes, often. Sometimes you feel very unproductive.
What do? Do you sit and stare or?
When you stare at a computer and it's blinking and there's nothing that is coming out of your mind, normally what I do is I get another book. Any book, it doesn't matter what the genre and all that. Even now newspaper cutting, after reading maybe 2-3 pages, some ideas start coming, and I now put the book down and start typing. I think that is how I handle
And it
writer's
just
block.
unblocks, yeah?
Somehow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When people read your work, and we juxtapose your work to whispers, and that's a huge thing. We know where whispers sits and stands in our hearts, because you're a humorist as well. Reading your post, almost everywhere one comes out like educated and laughing at the same time. How does that make you feel, being compared with such a great?
Well, it's a great compliment, considering that Whispers is in his own level in our literary scene. I think that is a huge compliment coming from a writer like you. But maybe what I would say is that I've learned from the best. As much as I may not be at his own level, at Whispers level, I've learned from the best. One of them is being Ted Malada, who is
Uncle Ted.
Uncle Ted.
Oh, and your Uncle Gil, lest you forget.
Yes. The article that I did in the Nairobian, I took over from him. Another thing that you don't know is that he was my English teacher in high school.
Who, Ted?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He taught me
Oh,
English
nice.
in Form 1 in Jerry School.
Full circle.
Yes. Yeah, so I think this is where I pick some of the writing tactics. But having said that, I would also say that I've learned a lot from previous writers like Wahome and many others, and I have maybe I borrow a lot from them. So that's why maybe people might say that I'm going towards Wahome's way.
So if I asked you who your inspiration is that the list you just put there? Is that your inspiration? Are those?
Yes,
Or what else inspires you?
Wahome would be up there. Then there's a group of writers especially from the 70s, from the Kenyan literary scene. There was Charles Mangwa. Charles Mangwa passed away in 2021. A huge writer, especially in terms of humor. There was Major Mwangi, Mwangi Geshero. All those writers from the 70s were quite punchy and very humorous, and also very folksy in terms of the way they depicted the Kenyan life, especially in the villages.
Okay.
So that is part of the heritage that informs my writing.
As you are a big reader of like local books, weren't you?
I do quite number
Like
of
I'm thinking from then up to now, how would you rate yourself as a person who consumes local literature?
I would say 7 thereabouts.
7, 10.
Yeah, but again, also I have a literature background. When you do BA literature in campus, you do quite a huge number of books by the time you graduate from campus.
Yeah.
But even after that, now because of that that tradition of reading in campus, I also do a lot of books. One of them being your books, the 3 cocktails.
Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to reading what is coming up from you.
It's coming soon.
The young writers who are coming up very well, Sahara Abdi, Stanley Gazeba, my friend Nganga. I do a lot of reading of the Kenyan books.
Okay.
When I can.
How would you rate us?
You are doing well. We are trying, especially in the last 10 years. There's a rebirth, there's a renaissance of kind of, especially the young people. The old generation is now taking a backseat, the Ngogis and the Major Mwangis.
Yeah.
There's a new group of writers that is doing very well, especially taking advantage of new forums like Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram to market themselves.
Do you think we can improve?
We have a long way to go. I think there are some countries that are doing better than us. Nigeria, West Africa, South Africa, even Uganda is doing better than us, if you ask me. So I think we still need to write more. That is the first thing. And also utilize the new digital platforms that the young people are utilizing to understand literature and to understand the world.
Your most nervous moment as a writer?
It's when I've been given a task to write, as opposed to something that comes naturally. Because sometimes I get some tasks from people. I want you to do a story for me. These 2,000 words. about this issue. It gets me off guard because I'm not able to get into the mind of that person.
Yeah.
So it makes me
Makes
very
you
nervous.
nervous.
And like when I sit down and do a story about my uncle and my aunt and my cousins.
Speaking
and all
of your uncle, your machete carrying and sharpening uncle, is it for real?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I have several uncles there in the village who are my buddies. Anytime I'm in the village, we always go to the shopping center, take a beer or two. So I would say the character is real. But again, these characters are characters that each of us has. There is always an uncle who is there in the village, always calling you Tuma Miambili, and this is something that I utilize to relate to the people. And the other thing is that this character is it's a mishmash. It's a mix of so many other characters. Because if you look at this uncle, he's always carrying a panga, but he's very kind to children.
Yeah.
You see, so he has two parts. He doesn't go to church, but on the other part, he's a very good guy. He smokes some kiraiko, but also he's he's always speaking very bad about smoking.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a mix of so many characters that we have, especially some of us who have some relatives who are in that age.
Yeah. So it's like there you go about creating. Yeah, there is your small God moment.
That is it. So I would say it is an extrapolation of the people that I have as my relatives. I tweak them so that they fit into what I would say would be universal traits that each of us can say. I have such a similar uncle in the village.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or with about 20% or 50% of those characters.
Yes.
I know Nobody's Darling is it was quite a deep book, and I know part of it is quite it's fiction. But I also know it's based on a real character because Muthoni Nyanjiro indeed really did live, and she fought, and she stood up to the white man when a lot of people could not do it. Tell me about, before you tell me about if there have been any scathing reviews about this book, tell me its journey of this.
Thank you, Ciku. This is a journey that I undertook like 5 years ago. Mainly because Muthoni Nyajiro came from a place called Withaga in Murang'a County. Withaga is like 5 ridges from my rural home area. So when I was growing up as a small boy, I had this maternal grandmother who would always talk about Nyajiro, a very gallant woman who stood against the governor, against the Mzungu and all that. So after hearing these stories as a young boy, after that I went to high school. I looked for Nyajiro's story. It was not there.
In the history books.
In the history books that I was reading then in high school. Then after that, I went to campus. I think in campus I did a lot of reading, especially history, literature, and all that, and that. But Nyajiro was not there. And where she was in some history books, she was just a small footnote somewhere in a book that is talking about women in the struggle, but no major paper about her. So I did something that Toni Morrison, the American writer, asked us. If there is a book that you want to read and it's not there, why not write it? So that's when I decided I should do a book about Nyajiro. So my first assignment was to collect all that is there written about Nyajiro, the written sources, and they are quite scanty, as I had said earlier. So after that, I went now to the village where she was born. I did some interviews. Somehow I landed into some trouble because when you go into the village and start asking about a woman who died 100 years ago, the people normally there in our place will ask you, do you want to take a shaba or something of the sort?
Yeah.
And I'd made a mistake. I'd gone there with an old Land Rover.
Government.
So it's not even a government Land Rover.
No, you look like the government.
That is a perception people have. What does this guy want? But now I also was able to go through the chief and some of the family members who are non-politicians. Our Senator Kebi Gitura, who happens to be a grandchild of Nyajiro.
Oh, interesting.
Helped me a lot in the research. So I did a lot of research, interviewing people, the stories that are existing about Nyajiro, even beyond her village. I even came here to Pangani here in Nairobi because that is where she used to live. There's still some memories about her. So after that, now the oral sources and the written sources, I sat down and combined the two now. But now you realize that there are so many gaps about that Nyanjiro, so that it was not possible to do a story about her fully. Because about Nyanjiro that is known is like the last 3 years of her life. So now I have to go back and creatively reimagine Nyanjiro backwards up to and starting at birth. And now combine that with the historical events that were happening in Muranga in the 1920s. After that, I now sat down and came up with timelines that this book is going to be like 80,000 words, 90,000 words. I broke down now to deliverables that I could now measure. Like say, this month I'm going to do 3 chapters, the other month I'm going to do 4 chapters, and all that. After I was done with the book, I got somebody to do the proofreading, editing, and all that. And then we sat down with some like-minded Kenyans to do the book launch in Kenya National Theatre.
Yes, I was there.
You were there. And surprisingly, I thought that I was doing the Nyajiro story alone, which is the case because I never involved anybody. But as I was about to do the book launch, I got a lot of people interested in Nyajiro because so many people have heard about her, but they've never come to hear her story.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of support from especially the people who are in the human rights
I remember,
circles, writers, and even the media fraternity. So that was my journey for the book. It did it quite well. I sold several copies. It had its own weaknesses that I think I can work on.
Yeah.
But it was a journey that was quite fulfilling for me as a writer.
Why do you think, I'm interested to know why do you think there was like some sort of blackout on such a huge character who did so much? Well, we know about Wangwa Makeri,
Yes.
who more or less lived around the same time. I think they lived...
Actually,
do you think they overlapped?
Wangwa Makeri was a bit older.
She was older than Muthoni.
Nyanjiro, yeah.
Yet, there's, like you say, they're just snippets of... Why do you think that is?
I think this is the way our society is structured. We tend to amplify the stories of men at the expense of women.
Yeah.
Number 2, we don't record our stories. Like now, you'll be surprised that there is the British, the colonialists have a lot of stories on Nyajiro. They documented something on Nyajiro. And all those
would the stories be at the archives, by the way?
Most likely, but not the archives here.
Not here.
Yes, they took a lot of stuff as they went back to England. So our problem is that we don't document about our people. There are so many stories that are out there. They are not documented, and they are at the risk of being forgotten, because the human memory has a span, has a capacity. So I think the best thing that we need to do is, if there's a story that you feel that it needs to be highlighted, write it now, so that 10 years, 20 years down the line, it is
somebody will read it.
It is in the media. There's an American writer called Alice Walker. Alice Walker is very dear to me. She has done several books, among them The Color Purple, which was made into a movie.
Into a movie, yeah. With Hoopy, yeah.
Yeah, and all that. So there's a poem that she did called Nobody's Darling. It is a poem that tells us don't try to please everybody. Be nobody's darling. You pursue your ideals and be ready to be an outcast when you do so.
Absolutely.
That poem can be found in the prologue of the book.
Okay.
That's why I borrowed the title of the book.
Okay.
Yep.
About workshops, authors' workshops and master classes.
Yes.
What do you think about them? Have you attended any?
Yes, I do when I can, because I don't work in Nairobi. If there is any workshop that I can attend, I endeavor to do so. Mainly because they are good forums for networking for writers. Writing is a very private undertaking. So when you bring writers together, they are able to have intercourse. That is, in terms of exchanging ideas.
Yeah.
That is one of the main things that workshops do. The other thing is that they give exposure to writers. They give exposure to upcoming artists and all that. So we cannot downplay the kind of the function they play in the literary circles. About master classes, I would say also they play a part, although I'm one of those people who think that you cannot be taught how to write. You can be taught the skills, you can be taught how the industry, what the industry needs, the do's and the don'ts and all that. Myself, I attended a master class that was run by Biko Zuru. That was in 2015. And after the master class, I feel energized. Actually, I started a blog called the Drum Major blog. And,
Doing very well.
Somehow. So they have their place in the literary environment. But I think my take would be that we need to devolve these events. For those people who are living in Meru, Wajir, Murang'a, wherever, they don't get to get some of these things.
Everything is in Nairobi.
Kila kitu iko Nairobi. So I think we need to have those things done in the small county headquarters, small towns, so that there's a rebirth of writing that like we had in the 70s and the 60s.
Okay. Yep. You went self-publishing. It's become a big thing right now. I would like to know why you went self-publishing.
Thank you. I had thought of doing the traditional publishing when I was doing this book, but again, the timelines were not on my side because I think I cleared the book in the year 2021, December. And you see, the book launch was supposed to be in March. So there was no time of taking this book to the publisher and going through all the hog, because traditional publishing is very rigid. So when I talked with one editor with a certain media house, publishing house, they told me, you'll have to wait for a whole year before we can publish this book.
Actually, a year they were nice to you. Very nice.
Yeah, in a way. So that is when I thought about which options do I have. So that's when somebody told me, why don't you go to the other way? So that's when I decided now that route. It's not a very easy route because you are everything. You the editor, you are the manuscript reader, you are the person to look for the publishers, the marketing manager, and everything. But I think it's a journey that is worth every effort, and you come out a better person, all rounded, instead of sending your book to a publisher and wait for the royalties at the end of the year. But I'm not saying that the traditional publishing has no place. It has its own place. I think it's a balance. If somebody chooses to go the self-publishing way, I think it's something that you should be prepared to sweat. If you want the other way, it is an easy way, but also it has its own advantages.
Okay, so it's like a personal choice, depending on how much money you have in the pocket or how long you're willing to wait for the publisher to make the decision.
Exactly.
Okay. Your marketing avenues, how has it been, and what do you?
Mostly, I think my major avenue for marketing was social media and word of mouth. And I think I was able to move through books through those platforms, and basically on Facebook. I think that was major platform that was able to move my books. Events, a book launch is a very important thing for a writer, especially if you are starting your writing career. It's good that you have you create some buzz around what you are doing, so that people can know there is this event, there is this book that is coming up. And I think as a writer, it is for us to know which works for you best, and measure your advantages and disadvantages, so that the process is works for your towards your advantage.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. I'm going to ask you to read for us a phrase from maybe a passage or two from this.
Yes, I think I can do a passage from page 165 of the book.
165.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a place where Nyajiro you're reading the Maid of Nyajiro, and Nyajiro is talking about her imminent death. So page 165 of the Nobody's Darling. Tell my people I will come. Modoni assured the living men as she handed them the letter, unsure of what she was saying, uneasy about the glad promise she was making. Mushiri noticed that the tremble in her hands, the stoop in her shoulders, and wondered whether Modoni was still the gallant girl who challenged the DC when barely out of her teens. He also wondered whether she was the right girl, her tribe was eagerly waiting for them to lead the all-important Itwika. As she bid the elders goodbye, Muthoni wasn't sure of ever seeing them again, and the people she had sent them to. For deep in her heart, she felt like the person who saw clouds gather above her head and said, "It will rain tonight." After which, winds of fate blew the clouds to some far place and the rain disappeared.
Thank you.
Most
Awesome. Have you made money with this? I don't want you to tell me how much, but have you made, can you sit back and say, yeah, that was worth the effort?
I would say I can pay my bills with the little that I get from the book. But I think the most important thing for a writer is that feel that I have achieved something. Like now, Nyajiro was dear to me because of the story that I knew when I was growing up. So my motivation was telling the story. If the book sells or not, that is not mine to gauge. I think that the satisfaction of telling the story outweighs the monetary gain.
Yeah.
Yes.
So has it opened doors being published like this? As
Yes.
other doors that were not open before?
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
This one being one of them. And I have done some other, I've gotten some other engagements, so to speak, based on the publicity that I got from this book. And I think the bigger picture is that the experience about publishing that I got from this book, how to do it, how not to do it.
Did you suffer? Were there
definitely
bumps? What sort of bumps did you encounter?
There are several. One of them is that the publishing industry has its own iko wenyewe. So I never knew that when I was doing this book. You agree with the publisher that I want this book in 2 weeks' time, because I have a book launch on this. 3 days towards the book launch, it's still taking round and round. So you have to sit there and make sure that you get like hard copies. The rest you can deliver later.
Yeah.
And the other thing I learned is that when you're doing such a book, you also need to involve several people, especially the line editors. One of the things that we writers do is that you think that you can self-edit, and also you get
big mistake.
Yes, you also get editing being done by a friend, which is not professional. So those are some of the things that I learned, and I think I'm going to be a better writer in my third book.
Okay. Before I let you go, give us a parting shot.
Thank you, Ciku, for inviting me to this show.
You're welcome.
Think this is a big honor for me as a writer, and I would say that I'm very, very much humbled. To my readers, to my fans, there is this book. We have it at Noria Bookstore that is on the Bazaar Moi Avenue. I'm also working in a book that I'm not going to disclose the title. It's coming up in December. Watch this space. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for turning up. And we come to the end of today's program, and see you next time. Bye-bye.